Bill, so go ahead.
All righty. Is my audio functioning properly?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Throughout the first hour and a half of our meeting today, virtually everyone has expressed concerns about the future of the district in terms of service levels, staffing, facility maintenance, fleet replacement, and other items of the similar ilk. If you were to encapsulate each of those concerns into a single sentence, it might be, where do you want to go in the next 7 years? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do? The second question in response to that is, how are you going to get there? Well, we've pretty much identified topics which could fall into the first sentence. Where do you want to go? Do you want to look at staffing levels? Do you want to look at facility maintenance needs, fleet replacement, equipment replacement, that sort of thing? And over the next several meetings, as we discuss what you want to do, the model will follow right along and show you alternative ways of getting there, of accomplishing your goals. And remember, goals are nothing more than your priorities. So the highest goal is your highest priority. And if it turns out staffing is the number one issue, or fleet replacement is the number one issue, we will focus first on that, identify the cost of achieving that goal, accomplishing that priority, and then when you are willing to accept the cost of achieving that goal, we can move to goal number 2 and go through a series of iterations. Each time we'll identify the next goal, the next priority. We'll look at the increased cost of achieving that goal and go until you think you've achieved enough during the next 7 years. So let's look at the following tables that will identify levy rates, property taxes, staffing levels, reserve contributions, and cash balances at the end of any given year. All financing for the RFA will begin with the assessed value. So here on this first page, we have the combined District 21 and District 4 current assessed values, add them together, and grow them at 4% per year. We'll have an opportunity to examine that 4% assumption a little bit later, and we can make it more or less, but under no conditions will we leave it at some percentage growth that you are totally uncomfortable with and think that it's not appropriate to use that level of growth for our planning purposes. All right, let's go to page 2. There we go.
Somebody's got a radio on in the background. I don't know what it is, but
that might be me.
I'm hearing a muffled conversation in the back. So,
oh no, I've got music on mine, very, very low, but I'll turn it completely off. Hang on. Go. All right. Let's see. Can we go to the top of this page?
Right there. This is,
I'm sorry. No, we're perfectly fine. One of the questions that was posed earlier is how much money do we already have? Your general fund has about $5.5 million at the end of 2020 or beginning January 1, 21. In addition to that, you have several reserve funds, which have amounts of money shown in the second column. So your apparatus already has $1 million in it. Capital projects has $1 million. There's a small leftover amount in the debt service reserve, which can be given back to the general fund since that's where it came from. The facility reserves has 300,000. But in addition to that, I'm recommending that you create a retirement reserve to accumulate some funds to pay off retirees' sick leave and vacation amounts that will be due upon retirement. Also, to separate equipment from apparatus and create an equipment reserve fund all on its own. You also have an amount of $1.1 million that does not appear to be associated with any given specific reserve. So I'm suggesting that go into and seed the first payments, or not payments, but the first installment of an emergency reserve fund, which you do not have at this point. So you've already got $3.5 million in reserves. You are free to redistribute that money any way you see fit and to return the $43,000 in the debt service back to the general fund. Any questions on that? All right, page 3. I was asked to model, where are you right now? Let's forget about setting new goals, raising taxes, doing anything except just let's form the RFA right where we are with the $1.15 or $1.14 levy rate. Just leave it where it is and just go on about our business. We have minimum contributions of, I'm estimating, somewhere around 300 to 350,000 going into reserves right now. Your property taxes, all right, your property taxes are shown here at these levy rates, which we all know go down and will probably be about $1 or $1.02 in 2027. This is one area that the chief and I will need to explore. I have identified 64 employees. We may have fewer than that, which would be favorable to the district and the modeling I've done so far. But we'll chat about that later. So if you did nothing, you would probably end up in 27 with about a little over $4 million at the end of the year to start 2028 with. And if that's the sole goal of the commissioners, not to fund actual vehicle replacement needs, capital needs, equipment needs, emergency funding, all that sort of thing, then you're okay. If you don't add a single new employee, if you limit your labor expense to 5% growth per year and your operating expenses to 2% per year, that's a pretty good figure, a little over 4 million. All right, let's go to the next scenario. The second challenge that was thrown at the model was, well, we'll keep the status quo with our levy rate. We'll keep the same, or we will not add any new employees. We will simply jack up our reserve contributions to about $1 million per year. Now, your reserve funds at that point will look pretty good. But remember, that $1 million a year, where did it come from? It came right out of the general fund. So instead of ending up with $4 million surplus in 27, you now end up having given your money to the reserves a negative $2.3 million in the hole. So something's got to give here. You can't leave the levy where it is and up your contributions to reserves and expect to have the same amount of money in the bank at the end of this 7 years. So let's look at some options at this point. We're right now at $1.15. That'll drop to $1.12 next year. Let's go to the next scenario. Yeah. All right. What would it take to dig us out of the hole, the $2 million deficit? Still, no increase in staffing. You keep your reserve contributions, but now instead of $1.12, you've got to go up to $1.17 on the first day of forming the RFA 2022. That'll get you to break even. But as we're going to see in a minute, that is not a viable option. Okay, we'll go to the next scenario. All right. In this scenario, we keep our $1 million contribution to reserves, but we add, and we also maintain the idea that we can end up in 27 just break even. But in this case, we've added 5 firefighters. So we went from 64 to 69. Now the half we're going to discard, as I understand that position is vacant. So we would have to go to $1.25 and in support of 5 firefighters and maintain our $1 million contribution to the reserves. Next scenario. Now comes the difficult issue of talking about what is called working capital. You all know that property taxes only come in twice a year, at the end of April and most of May, and then again at the end of October. However, on January 1st, 2028, when you have $0 in the bank because you just broke even, your budget will be about $12 million a year. So that's $1 million a month. So in January, you're going to spend $1 million, but you started the year with $0. Now, where is that $1 million going to come from in January, February, March, April, until May, when all the property taxes come rolling in for the first half of the year? The answer is you can't get away with that scheme. You need to have the $4 million to meet payroll and operating expenses for January, February, March, and April in the bank on the first day of the year. So, without changing our reserve contributions, we still want the 5 firefighters, but now you've got to go to $1.33 to accomplish all 3 goals: reserve contribution, 5 new firefighters, and $4 million of working capital at the end of 27. Next scenario. To round out the peak activity units, in addition to the 5 firefighters, you need 4 bat chiefs. So now we've gone to 73 employees, the $1 million reserves, the $4 million of ending fund balance. You're now required to have or to start the RFA January 1, 2022 at $1.42. You still have 8 cents of capacity that could be utilized elsewhere, but this gives you the idea that the model that we're going to look at over the next couple of months will give you the ability to ask all these questions to get immediate feedback. One of my large disappointments in the last 50 years of doing this kind of work was when the commissioner said, "What if we did this?" And my answer would be, "I'll get back to you in 2 weeks." What we can do now with this model is if you say, "What can we do?" or how can we accomplish this? You can expect an answer in a matter of seconds. So given that, we will move to the next scenario.
Actually, that's all the scenarios. We're now into
Okay.
some rules of thumb.
Yeah, these are just reminders. Each employee at the firefighter level takes about 1.5 cents levy from 22 through 27. 5 FTEs, therefore, would be 7.3 cents. 9 FTEs would take 13 cents. And just as a kind of an aside, if you issued a $10 million.
Wait, this is just the levy.
Okay. Just focusing on the levy. 10-cent levy would cost a $400,000 homeowner $40 a year. Now let's explore that a little bit more on the next slide. Just a reminder, a $10 million bond issue over 20 years with a 3% average interest would cost $672,000 per year. Now, I went back and looked at the assessed value of the 2 districts in 2009. And if you had issued in 2009 a $10 million bond issue at 3%, your total assessed value would have been, at that time, $5.2 billion. That would have then taken a 13-cent levy to raise $672,000. 20 years later, in 2028, that levy rate, well, the AV at 4% would have grown from 5.2 billion to 11.4, and you're well on your way to that target. The levy rate would have fallen from 13 cents to under 6 cents per thousand. If you owned a $200,000 home in 2009 and it grew 3% per year, it would now be valued at $361,000. The taxes paid would have been $25 in 2009 and $21 in 2028. 2 reasons. The assessed value of the entire district will grow slightly faster than the average increase on a single home because you're adding new construction, new homes, new businesses, new land development, which contributes to a 4% growth while the individual home is going up, in this example, at 3%. So, can I answer any questions at this point?
I'm going to stop the share so we can see.
Sure.
How are you guys doing?
I think we lost everyone.
It's possible. I don't know. So, did that make sense? Did you show how you different levy rates, different ads of staff will cost you different amounts, and how that will flow through 7 years? Any questions or comments from what you've seen here so far? And I'll start with Bruce.
Thank you.
I'll get mine later. I know, but with great power comes great responsibility, Bruce.
Bill, I just want to thank you in front of the group and anyone else watching. This is a model that I've been hoping to see since I started here 5 years ago of how do we fund stuff and how much does it cost? And the fact that you can, at the touch of a button now, give us an instantaneous answer to that question is invaluable. I see this as, I think we're here today as a combined District 4, District 21 boards to see where the next step in the planning committee's work is going to be happening. And so I don't foresee us convening, maybe one more time as both boards together, but we wanted both boards to see where we're going, right? And it's up to that planning committee now with this information to come back to the boards and say, hey, look, we've met, we've discussed, this is what we think is in the best interest of the RFA, and then the boards will have to approve that. And if they do so, then it comes back and we move forward with our hopefully August election plan. But this is amazingly helpful to know that, hey, what does 10 cents get me? And I think the interesting piece is the 10-cent levy on a $400,000 home is $40 a year. So, let's just say, and let's shoot for the moon and say, let's raise it 30 cents. That's $120 a year. That's $10 a month. I don't know how we cannot not sell that to the public. But that's up to the RFA committee to do that. I think it puts it into numbers that the average homeowner in person can relate to. And so I hope the rest of the board feels the same way as I do about that.
Anybody else want to chime in at this point?
Well, I just want to follow up on Bruce. Bruce, did you say you used the $100,000 figure when you were saying it'd be $10 a month?
That's the $400,000 house.
Yeah, $400,000 house.
Right.
$400,000 house with a 30-cent levy increase.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was just kind of thinking that was probably our average. I just heard it wrong at first, and I was like 100,000. I don't know. We can get a house anywhere for that. I don't see that we could do anything less to begin with.
Any other comments or questions here while we've got Bill here, and we will see more of Bill in the next several planning committee meetings.
Oh, could I ask one more question?
Of course, go ahead.
With District 4, and I know I should know these numbers better, but I don't. But I believe we're at somewhere around a 88-cent fire levy is somewhere in there.
Yes.
And the EMS levy would disappear, but right now, so technically our folks are paying $1.20, is that correct?
You're paying $1.03.
What did we pay?
Sorry, $1.03.
$1.03?
Yep. And
with the EMS levy?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I think this is one of the things, the slides from the public outreach. Your two combined levy rates are actually very close right now. At you guys in District 4 at $1.03, and District 21 is at $1.14. Those are really very close.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good starting point. I've seen projects ground out right off the bat because levies are so different. So you guys do not have that problem, which is good. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I'm gonna say thank you, Bill, and I am so excited to see where we go with all of this. And one question I do have, actually, Chief Vanderveen, do you have reason to believe that head count that he is using is way off?
No, it's not. It's not way off. But now that he's questioned it, I'm questioning what's in my head, and so I
Okay.
will confirm via a three-way email.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I look forward to that. Okay. So, because that's kind of a good number to know and have right.
Yep.
So we're going to move to part 5 of 8. So that's exciting. This is where we break down what do you guys want to add in the next 7 years? What is most important to add if we're going to maintain service levels as population and calls for service grow? We're first going to start talking about staffing additions. Then we're going to talk about apparatus. And then we're going to talk in part 8 about facilities. So actually it's part 7 is facilities, sorry. So we're in part 5 of your books now. And what we're going to do here is the chief is going to talk to you about what he believes would be necessary to reliably be able to maintain your current service levels as population and calls for service go up over the next 7 years. What would he recommend you add? And there are two different things. There's a baseline, which is just maintain response times, staff safety, your ability to provide your current services as demand grows, just maintain, and that's what we call baseline. And then baseline plus is what is the first increment of stuff you would recommend adding as chief to increase those service levels. So what's the first thing you would do above maintenance of current levels of service? That's baseline plus. Are we clear on the nomenclature? Because it's kind of important to understanding where we're going here. People get that?
Hopefully I
Hearing
got it.
none, I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to turn it over to the chief, and we should now be looking at the page in your packets that has the front half of a nice org chart.
Yep,
guys got
page
that?
30.
Page 30.
Page 30 is where we should all be. So I just want to really quickly do a little history. First, I want to talk about what Mr. Cushman said, and then do a little history lesson. I'd ask you to remember as we're going through this that what Mr. Cushman just presented was essentially staffing what we have today with a little bump in personnel, doing some responsible reserves, but no big capital outlay, no big capital facilities. So I just want to keep everybody to kind of keep that in mind as we're going through these. And maybe if you're wondering why we're not shooting for the moon on some of this stuff, because we've got a lot of areas to cover and only so many checks in the checkbook. So the little history lesson is that I've been here since 2007, and other than the addition of solidifying a three-man engine or three-person engine, we have not increased our level of service to the public. So we're staffing the same stations, 61, 63, and station 69, which used to have a different number. And then by contract, we staff station 12 with the same level of service. So the District 4 taxpayer has seen an increase in the level of service, but our potential RFA wide, we have not increased our level of service for our taxpayers essentially since 2007. I'm going to try to crank up the pace on that change a little bit. And what you see here in front of you on page 30 is the administrative side of the chart.
Jason, can I interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
You said at District 4, we hadn't really seen any changes in staffing, but did we not over the wasn't station 12, how far back was that the staff station?
No, that's what I'm saying is that in District 21, we haven't seen any appreciable change in staffing levels, but in District 4, we went from, you guys had previously a 12-hour staff and then nighttime staff. It was staffed by volunteers.
No, I understand now. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, thanks for clarifying. So what you're seeing here on page 30 is the administrative side of baseline and baseline plus. So although the battalion chiefs are going to kind of span both pages. Karen said something in a meeting. I don't remember whether it was a planning committee meeting or a meeting that she and I were having, but she kind of tipped her head to the side and said, it sounds like you're not even at baseline with what you're trying to do. And that kind of got the cogs going in my head. And I started thinking, you know, we're really not. We need to be offering what our baseline should be is actually higher than it is today. And where is that logical step? Now, we could put another boots on the ground unit on, or should we increase the oversight and leadership and prep the way for that, for those additional, you know, for additional staffing somewhere else, or adding another unit. So going back and looking at some past documents, speaking with members that have been here for longer periods of time and talking to other agencies that have grown kind of on a similar path to ours, or that are already grown up, battalion chiefs is really the logical step for us to take next. And so that's going to be the big outlay, or the big kind of ask for the RFA to go immediately, if not before the RFA, at the inception of the RFA, to go to adding battalion chiefs as part of that baseline plus. On the raw admin side, you see between assistant chief and battalion chief, you see admin assistant. That's not really going to be an addition. That takes care of all the current administrative employees for both districts. Once again, I remind everybody that the RCWs, everybody comes across. We're not heavy. We can use everybody we've got. The additional administrative, so in baseline, it's just battalion chiefs. If you flip to page 31, you can see more where those BCs, that's fire lingo for battalion chief, where those BCs are going to fit in to the org chart, the kind of the daily organizational chart, the response, what the customer is going to see on the bottom end. And what it's really doing is, Commissioner Ansel, I believe it was him that kind of alluded to it before, but you know, with the increase of administrative demands, you know, myself and Chief Ward, we're not getting out there. We're not supervising the troops. There's a breakdown in communications, you know, because I can't be everywhere at once, and our troops deserve, the crews deserve that oversight that right now the districts, we're just not able to give them, and that can be accomplished with battalion chiefs. It provides stability and consistency for the crews. It provides a kind of upper middle management place for complaints or concerns from our public to be heard, you know, immediately, as opposed to making its way through the email chain to me and then finding out 2 days later. It puts depending on how we write the job description, it puts a health and safety officer on duty 24 hours a day, which is something the district is currently lacking, and puts us at some risk if we were to have an on-the-job injury. It's the next natural step for the district. And I go back to what Karen said that kind of piqued my interest before. I think this is something we actually need now, if not before now. But as we're talking about planning, it really needs to be in our baseline org chart as we're talking about the RFA. That's where we need to start, is with 4 battalion chiefs, a dedicated one per shift, so that every single day we've got a command officer on the road checking in with the crews, and that's spanning that operational and administrative kind of that spot. That is my baseline plus, or my baseline, excuse me. Baseline plus is denoted by the red arrow. So those positions would be additional positions. These are kind of our pie in the sky, or where maybe this is planned sometime in the first 5 years or so of the RFA. And that is to add a public educators, and I'll even add /PIO, someone to help us get our message out, coordinate with schools, coordinate with community groups, and this even dovetails into some of the facility stuff, as we talk about building new stations or remodeling stations. It sounds, one thing that's really common in the fire service, and Station 12 does it exceptionally well, as does 61, they've got a community room that the community can use. And having that person be kind of an ombudsman for the facilities the district has and can offer the citizens. Then the big baseline plus, the big red arrow with the purple square that now I see it on paper makes it kind of hard to read, but that would be a peak hours transport unit. I feel like that is it's a current need that we have. Just this week, we had three calls going on within 10 square miles of each other. And we are spread out. We're 186 square miles. And I've been talking about it in my public outreach, but just for comparison size, Bellingham, the city of Bellingham is 35 square miles. So we're big. It takes a while for anybody to get there if a crew needs help or if we've got an additional call for service. So the peak hours unit I feel is defensible. On your next two pages, page 32, you'll see a paragraph about incident concurrency. That comes from the ESCI report. And really the shocking number is line two incidents. We typically 38% of the time we have two incidents running at the same time. Now, a lot of that comes in that northwest corner for us based on long transport times. So when you've got state units in Blaine and Birch Bay out on transports, we're talking they could be out for an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the packaging of the patient, weather conditions, all those other things. The flow of things at the ER as they're transferring care of the patient, and it can affect us greatly. And that's where we have really robust auto aid agreements. With District 7 or Ferndale, as well as with Bellingham. And but one thing, as we were talking, somebody was talking about auto aid earlier, and it made me realize that auto aid is kind of a way of covering each other's weaknesses. And when we get that big incident, say for instance, a train derailment, which we had in January, and hopefully it's a once in a career deal, but we've got multiple units on scene for hours, and as did Fire District 7. And we had specialists come up from Bellingham Fire. And so now you've got all three kind of big organizations calling for callback, begging for people to come in on their day off and cover the stations, which we can usually do after a number of hours. But with a peak hour unit, and if you look at page 33, it shows, this is again from the ESCI report, it shows our peak hours and really where it even makes a recommendation in there about that the 12-hour period between really 08 and 8 p.m. is really where our peak hours, where our peak usage is. And, starting with a 12-hour staffed peak aid car transport unit that would backfill some of those spots on the west side of our district, which really, because of the border and the water, we're painted into a corner. So as far as firefighters go, that's where the number 9 came from, where you saw 5 for the peak hours unit. Additional staffing will be done with overtime or debit days, as well as 4 for the battalion chiefs, and then one additional administrative staff for that PIO or public educator. And that's everything. I hear you, Ken. I know everything is to be negotiated with the union. Maybe it's uniform, maybe it's not uniform. We'll work out the details later. But those are my baseline and my baseline plus recommendations for where we go as the RFA.
Thank you, Chief. So first, let's just start with questions. Does anyone have a question about what the chief is proposing in the way of staff adds to maintain services at baseline? And the first thing he do to above that, the peak hour unit and the public relations person. Any questions? Okay, so let's talk. What do you guys think about this? Are these we're not making final decisions today. But does the baseline recommendation make sense to you? Would you agree that the first thing we should do to really stabilize our service levels is to add those 4 bat chiefs? Or would you have thought we would have been going in a different direction? And if so, why? So that's what's on deck now. Does anybody want to start this conversation?
Should I?
Go ahead. Thank you.
I thought I'd volunteer before you volunteered me anyway.
I love that.
Oh, yeah. I've learned. Thank you for training me.
A long, arduous process of multiple years of abuse. Yes.
Thank you. We hire a fire chief to make recommendations to the board. I mean, normally the board doesn't have as much maybe fire service experience as our boards actually do. And so, for me, this is a no-brainer, but I think, the combination of to make District 21 to begin with, and then now the proposal to bring 4 and 21 together is just moving us to a more professional organization. And we've made do, and I applaud our employees for, going out to calls and being the incident commander and probably doing more than they should in some cases, because that's all they know. But as the chief said, we don't have that oversight. We're asking the fire chief to run weekends and evenings and share that duty with our assistant chief, Sean Ward right now, and Ferndale and Linden. I mean, we are growing up and we need to grow up, and that consistency and safety will mean a lot, I think, to our employees of having one person to go to 24/7 on every shift that can manage the day-to-day stuff, and through the 4 of them provide consistent messages to all 4 shifts. And like Jason said, I mean, somebody gets hurt, who do we call? Even the BC could interimly be our PIO. If a big incident happens, there's a chief officer there that can talk to the media, talk to the public, and represent us if we can't get a PIO up front. But that's a person who now knows what's going on all over the district every given day and could be that spokesperson. Safety is another big issue, and the accountability and all that. I come from a large department. It seems like second nature to have battalion chiefs. And I think this department is growing to a point, especially with our 180 plus square miles of service area, to expect the chief officer to drop his administrative duties and run all over the area. His day is shot. He hasn't been able to accomplish anything else. So, I think it's a great recommendation. I think it's up to the planning committee to decide, is that something that we want to move forward with right now? But I appreciate all the time and effort and work that's been put into this.
Other comments on the staffing baseline and baseline plus recommendations from the chief? Dave Hansen, was that a thumbs up for it, or was that I want to make a comment?
No, my thumbs up was I liked how Bruce was starting out there. I agreed with what he was saying.
Okay.
I'm just having fun with the little buttons,
Okay. Anything you want to add here on this discussion?
Oh, I really commend everybody for all the work that they put into this, because I sure didn't, and I think I really agree that we have a governance management set up, and we've got a chief that we pay to bring these ideas and suggestions and needs to the table, and I've got to trust him. I don't have Bruce's experience either as a chief officer in a big fire department, so really we have to rely on our people with that knowledge, I think. So I hate to keep saying it, but I'm more of a follower in this type of situation. I'm more of a governance guy.
But you're not uncomfortable with what the chief is presenting.
No, I trust him, and I don't think I'm qualified enough to say that I would be. I have to put a little trust into these guys, and I definitely have written some questions down to ask.
This is as good a time as any, but is there a big question for you on this recommendation, Dave?
No, nothing really. There's again, I think I just have to rely on our expertise there, and then with Bill Cushman with his recommendations that are the financials that he threw out there. I definitely got my mind boggled. Numbers and I don't do real well together. I pay people to do numbers, and now I remember exactly why I do that.
I share your pain. Math is not my forte either. Commissioner Andrews, what are you thinking about what you've been hearing about staffing ads?
Well, one of the most important things, I believe, is the PIO. We've got to bring our public on board, not only for bringing this RFA to fruition, but also what we do on a daily basis. And we need to have them on our team, and a PIO would be very important.
Okay. So you might like to see that in baseline.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Crawford, any thoughts here?
You mute myself. There we go. No, we saw basically some of these recommendations from our ESCI report, and I'm fully on board with some of those recommendations, just to the fact that we're growing day by day and getting double tapped for calls all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we need to make those adjustments and bring personnel into those positions. I kind of echo what Bruce said. PIO, bad chief, simple little added task to that battalion chief.
Yeah. The PIO function could be performed by the BAT chiefs in the interim.
Correct. So I'm fully on board with this and moving forward. So I appreciate Jason's presentation. It helps out a lot.
Great. Anyone else here, Rich or Scott?
Oh, I think the time has come to move in that direction. So I fully agree with the chief on this one.
Great. Thank you. Scott, anything you want to add or ask? Or
I agree with you.
you're on mute still. There you go.
I'm in agreement with the chief and Commissioner Crawford, and we're heading in the right direction.
Good. All right. Anybody want to ask anybody else questions that's on the call? Okay.
Karen, if I could,
Yes.
just real quick, I want to add, I just got to be on. I want to make sure everybody realizes these aren't fresh ideas. I didn't hatch this plan myself. This has been, we've known this for a long time. We've got a lot of documents floating around that I've been able to read that says we've been on the cusp of this for probably years. And so I just want to make sure that we're all clear that I think we've all known this is coming. It's not necessarily bad. It's just, we just need a collective decision to move forward with things like this. These are not my ideas.
Are we ready to move on to the next section, or is there anything anyone wants to add at this point?
No, I would like to make a notice.
I'm sorry, Harry, I don't think I understood. I didn't think I heard you.
I just looked at my battery on this computer. It's going 0.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can sit next to somebody who's largely cootie free. And still, or they can find you a power cord somewhere in the building. Okay, maybe Chris knows where there's a power cord in the building that she can run to you. I don't know who else is there that can help you.
Yeah, when I left home, it was 100%.
Darn, that'll happen. Okay, so I'm
Same
going,
here. I have a cord, but my battery is going dead as well.
so unless there's something else folks would like to chat on here, I'd like to suggest we move to part 6, which is the chief's recommendations around what would be necessary for baseline maintenance of level of service with respect to apparatus acquisitions in the next 6-7 years. And where would he go first in terms of baseline plus above that maintenance of effort? And here we're looking at a lot of stuff here. So go ahead, Jason, take it away.
Okay, so what we've got here is we've got a simple chart for you. It should be on page 35 of your packet. It just outlines engines, aerials, tenders, wildland, and ambulances. What you see is in baseline plus, or excuse me, baseline, for engines, our needs are 3 more engines. We've got 1 coming, should be here in April, but we need to get our other 3 engines. So, in line for replacement. We need to stagger those replacements so that we're not buying 4 engines at a year.
Yeah.
As far as the baseline plus part of that, that's just adding an additional engine to
There's a plug-in right behind me.
Hold a second while cords are.
Yep.
And Jason, when you get back to this, can you clarify whether in the first row, is that additive? We're not talking a total of 7. We're talking a total of 4.
3 or 4. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
I will do that.
So wait a second. We've just lost Commissioner.
Commissioner Andrews.
Andrews.
He's here. He's just getting plugged in.
Okay.
And he'll have to dial back in. Maybe Chris can help him dial back in.
We'll work on it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Somebody's crunching. Okay, am I okay to start or keep going?
Give us 1 minute.
Okay.
I'm back, by the way.
Okay, thank you. The awkwardness of Zoom.
All right, sorry. We are repositioning Commissioner Andrews back so he can participate on my screen as well.
Okay.
Great.
Am I okay to start yakking again or?
Give me 15 seconds.
Got it. Just let me know.
Yeah, we planned for everything except battery failure.
When I started, it was 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're, all right. Okay, I think,
Yeah, Rich went down too.
yours is working.
Yeah, mine's working.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started then.
Okay, so back to engines. So what I'm saying in baseline is that we need an additional 3 engines, 3 replacement engines to replace aging apparatus. My baseline plus recommendation would be to add another engine to those. That would give us, and that the addition of that 4th engine would be later in the RFA, so closer to 2027. And that would allow us to have equally spread out and aged apparatus so that we get on a more sustainable cycle. And we always have 2 reserve engines for use by crews as things go out for maintenance or as they break down. Below that, you see estimated years of acquisition. When will we buy these rigs? As I said, we have one coming in 2021. My plan would be baseline. We would need one more in 2023, 24, and 25. And then if we were to do the baseline plus, it would be to add an additional engine in 2026. So we can kind of lengthen out the replacement schedule on these apparatus. Estimated cost per vehicle for engines, we're putting $750,000. That is just a very rough estimate. I will say again, that's a rough estimate for a total baseline of $2.25 million in outlay for just engines at the baseline level, or $3 million at the baseline plus level.
And
For
just,
aerials.
I'll just note
Yes,
that I made I think I got a math error in there. Baseline plus the very bottom line. All in baseline plus is not 13.25, it's 9.75 million. I thought those were additive. So they're cumulative. So the baseline plus price tag for all in everything on this sheet is 9.75 million, rough estimate.
Okay, thank you. For aerials, we have 2 aerials in our system. Everybody knows we had a 1977
My goodness.
ladder that went out of service. We put out of service when we traded Bellingham for a training engine for $1 and got another older, a 1990s ladder truck. So we've got two ladders. Both are old and both are going to be needing replacement. One would be during the period we're talking about in 2025. The other needs to be replaced in 2031, which is outside the years that we're talking here, because we're really only talking up to 2027. But I added it in there because of the size of the cost. So I estimated, once again, these are potentially a little low, but at $1.5 million replacement cost for each apparatus, for a total of $3 million. I'm calling those baseline because by ISO ratings, we really need to have two ladder trucks, 2 aerial apparatus within the district, because of the way we're split with the train, where our urban or our high rises are centered both in Birch Bay and Blaine. We've got weight restrictions on a bridge that we can't pass, increasing response time from Blaine to Birch Bay by about 13 minutes. So we really are geographically, we have to have two ladder trucks. Tenders, I think everybody knows this. This should not be a surprise to anybody that's even glanced at the ESCI report. The fleet basically needs to be replaced. So my baseline and my baseline plus are the same number. This is like I said, I'm not doing pie in the sky. I'm not asking for tiller ladder trucks or anything like that. This is just to replace what we have. We're looking at replacements in 2022 for two tenders, 24, 25, 26, and 27, each of those years. Now we are very fortunate that District 4 came into this contract with some moderately healthy tenders that will extend out to that 26, 27 timeframe. But really what District 21 brings into the marriage is some pretty ancient apparatus, and we're going to be in need of immediate replacement. Wildland, I didn't even put a number in there. Oh, sorry, to go back to the price. So 375 is what I put in for tenders. Just basic water, getting water to the fire tenders, nothing fancy, for a total of 2.25 million. For wildland rigs, these all fall outside of the RFA planning process. I know that they have they've got a timeline in the ESCI report that shows they're overdue, or they're going to be overdue. But to be honest, our wildland trucks are flat skids put on the back of a heavy duty truck. It would be an easier replacement. I'm not saying easy, but it would be easier replacement. So I didn't include them in this because I feel that's one area where we can stretch out a little bit, and the cost is not so high that we'll be able to make that up at a future date. And the topic of the hour is ambulances. That's what we burn through. We need to have 7 ambulances, kind of raring to go. We've got 3 on order, 2 to be delivered hopefully April 1st, and then 1 more that will be going into production this year. Those will replace our oldest rigs. We have a 2019 ambulance at Station 63 that, honestly, by the time we get the one that was ordered this year that will go into production this year, that rig will be ready to go into a reserve status. That's how many, because of the size of our district and the amount of miles that we put on, that rig that came into service in 2019, by 2023 is going to be ready to go to a reserve status. Now we have 2 4-wheel drive aid cars posted both in Blaine and at Station 12. They are older units, but they are in extremely good condition. They're low miles. They're very well taken care of. But those are something that we're going to have to look at replacing at some point. The baseline plus would be to build a bigger fleet of reserve ambulances. The frequency, once again, because of the miles and the abuse, the road hours that these get, they do go down. It would be nice to have more reserves, some more stable and reliable and more modern reserves. And additionally, we would need to add another newer unit to staff that peak hours unit. We wouldn't want to put them in an old rundown aid car. We want them to be in the same spec that we're running out of the 4 engines. So it would be an additional aid car to staff that, or to bring up that peak hours unit. So ambulances, I estimated at 250,000. So if we go with baseline, it's 1.2 million or 2.5 million, and baseline plus is 1.5. So the estimated cost for all this, what I just discussed, is 8.75 baseline for just baseline what we need to really be considering replacing in our fleet, and to keep it up to standard, keep it up to safety standard. And then at 9.75 for the baseline plus for the quote unquote extras that we're talking about here. It's a big number, and unfortunately it's a number that we've kind of probably ignored for a little bit too long, and so there's going to be a little pain in making this up, but I feel like this process is really been eye-opening for all of us to take a really good look at our infrastructure. Pages 36 and 37 are some discussion points that were put in to the ESCI report that I just wanted to kind of bring you back to and have you have you look at. We don't have to look at it right now, but I'd ask that you read through it as you kind of digest these documents. And I added want to make sure to add the bottom paragraph on page 36 discusses apparatus maintenance and replacement planning. And if you turn to page 37, I'll let you all beat me up later, but I asked Jenny to highlight when we put this together. It says NWFR replacement planning. North Whatcom Fire and Rescue does not currently maintain a capital vehicle replacement plan nor a capital equipment replacement plan. And I think Mr. Cushman has really wisely outlined in the financial plan that we should be sequestering funds for both equipment and apparatus separately because of the high cost. And we're talking equipment. We're not talking about just simple things. A set of rescue tools for a new engine is we're talking $40,000. These are expensive tools and equipment that we're talking about, and so it is definitely good financial planning to have some of these, a rainy day fund for these, so that we're not having to dig in the couch cushions to outfit a new fire engine.
May I add a comment?
Of course.
Let's see. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. I think you'll be pleased to note that the apparatus replacement model goes out 30 years into the future. So we can include all of these vehicles in the base financial plan. Even though they're beyond the 7 years, we can look at the total cost over 30 years. And so there's no surprises coming down the road.
Good point. Thank you. Are there questions or comments for the chief about these apparatus additions? It's a chunk of change, and it's probably not a surprise having gone through the master plan and the capital plan. What do you think based on what you're seeing here?
I'll volunteer. The question is for Bill. You have set up a reserve plan. Does it include for any of this stuff, or I think I'm getting feedback more, but basically saying if we were to go out and do this, it would cost this much. And so I'm thinking, okay, we've got to either pass a bond or raise the levy rate to accommodate $9.75 million. Or in your modeling, is some of that cost covered in setting up those reserve funds? Or are we too early in that process?
No, we're not too early. I have preliminary numbers in the apparatus and the equipment and the facility maintenance reserves. They're only preliminary, and they're designed to get the conversation started from this wish list. What are your highest priorities? The chief and I have discussed that several days ago, and I'm in the process of bringing the apparatus, equipment, and facility models up to meet the conversation that we had. But it's not going to be a brand new, unrecognized expense. We've already identified most of the expenses. Some of them will change, but the models are already in place.
So Bill, just so I am hearing you correctly, you're saying some, but not all of the apparatus could be funded at the level of reserves you presented earlier today?
Yes, that is correct.
Is it like less than half, more than half?
The one thing I've left out entirely are the capital projects, beginning with the station retrofit for seismic or an $8 million new station. Those I haven't even begun to analyze.
Right.
But the tenders, pumpers, ambulances, they're all in there. There's an extensive list of equipment. And by that, I mean air compressors, hose, SCBAs, very, very expensive equipment, and a maintenance allowance for each station. I think I used $10,000 per year per station, just as a beginning point.
So that sounds like it's probably not facilities replacement, but for apparatus, you probably have most of the baseline is in there now, but maybe not all of it. And that's what you're double checking.
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
That's really good news. Okay, good question. Anybody else have a question for either Bill or the chief here on the apparatus list? Does this look weird to you? Is this surprising? Or is this, yep, it's time to do this?
Time to do this.
Time. Thank you, Rich. Anyone else? Concerns, questions? I know it's a lot to absorb, but nobody's walked away from their computer, so I'm really happy about that.
Well, we haven't got to facilities yet, so just hang on.
Yeah, we saved the scariest parts for last, guys. Anything, or you ready to move on to facilities? Okay, we're gonna go to facilities. That's part 7. So go for it, Chief. This is
Okay, so this is more pages. What you see first is going to be just a chart that I'll hit here in a second. I want to go through what's behind it, just so you're not flipping, or you can, I guess, just so you know what's back there. So then we've got all 4 of the ESCI report, basically information pages for each of the 4 staffed stations in here. 12, 61, 63, 69, and then included station 68, where the tender group is out of, just because of its kind of, it is of prime importance to us as well. It gives an outline of where those stations were at. It just covers a lot of different parameters, how many bays they've got, restrooms, sleeping quarters, yay or nay. Those are available for you to peruse kind of at your leisure. I want to go back to the chart that's on the first page of the facilities talk. And, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think we all know this. There's no difference between baseline and baseline plus in this. I think it's all, unfortunately, baseline, but it's longer than the 7-year. It's longer than the 7-year period we're talking about. And I think what's important here is we look at most of the information I've gotten from is my own knowledge of just working and living in these stations over my time here at North Whatcom, from the ESCI report, from feedback from our employees, and also from the 2016 capital facilities plan. All of our stations need a little love, some more than others. And actually there's a bright side to this. We've got 2 amazing facilities: Station 12 in District 4 and Station 61. We're starting from good foundations there. Station 63 and 69, there's a little bit more that we need to talk about. Station 63 was due to the capital, or per the capital improvement plan, for roughly a $5 million, I think, $4.4 million seismic upgrade and remodel in 2020. Station 69 was due for a $2 million SAMES upgrade and remodel. The ESCI report, as well as just anecdotal evidence from having worked at 69 for years, is, we have questions about, is that even in the right place? With the guide now being a divided 2-lane highway with roundabouts, there's oftentimes, and there's sometimes we have to go past a call to get to it, turn around and get to it. Or you have employees making the decision to jump the roundabout and go the wrong way up a 50-mile-an-hour road, based on the life and property, making that snap decision. So we need to see, is Station 69 even in the right spot? We get to Station 63, it's our biggest station, whether you want to call it our flagship station or whatever. It's past its time. It's a wonderful facility that was built for volunteers, and it served its purpose great then. But we now have full-time crews in there. You talk about the addition of a battalion chief or additional staffing. The rooms in that facility are so small that really the crew living area has taken over all of everything, and it's the way it should be. That's where those folks live a quarter of their year, a third of their year. We shouldn't ask them to be, to have their living room be a 10 by 10 room that gets just beat by the sun all summer in a non-air conditioned building. So we've tried to do some incremental improvements to make things better or more livable for them, but we do have some pretty significant needs. Really the first thing that I'm outlining is that we need to, and I will give Commissioner Ansel the credit for this. He's the one that kind of dropped it in my head. But we need to budget, make sure that our first year of the RFA budget has money for a study, a really good study with some elevations for what the replacement of 63 is going to look like. And I would go so far as to say that we might also need to do a dual study where we look at, is 69 even in the right spot? I think we've got a lot of good evidence from the ESCI report that we could do a majority of that ourselves, but I think it's always good to have a third party, when you're talking about the cost associated with moving a station, have a third party kind of verify our thoughts or our feelings. And I think that one thing that the RFA board is, whether the planning committee sets the board, hands this football to the board, but the honest talk about a potential bondish measure to fund the building of Station 63 or the remodel of 63. It's going to be a big remodel. That's where our mechanics are located. It's a facility that's got a ladder truck. It's got aid car. It's got, two aid cars, a brush truck, an engine, a tender. It's a big facility, and building it to today's standards, I fear we're past a remodel. I think we're going to hit that criteria where we're looking at a complete renovation that's going to bring it up to code, which when I look at it through my chief hat, that's the right thing to do for our employees, is bring it up to today's health and safety standards. And I know I certainly would want that if I was working in that building. So I don't think we could ask them any less. And then there's just the ongoing capital needs of HVAC upgrades or repairs at stations, painting. Station 12 needs to be painted or stained. We've got Station 69 is, the roof is 40 years old, and lifespan of metal roof is 40 to 70 years. So we've got some potential big maintenance issues or maintenance pieces that are coming up for all of our facilities. And in this time, in the capital facilities plan, it also talks about planning for a new station. And I don't know that we have the data to support building a new station in a new area. I think with our robust, I keep using that word, auto aid agreements, that we cover each other pretty well. But the new station may be the total replacement of, like I said, 63 or 69, or building out, retrofitting Station 68, which is another one of the stations that I put into the packet there. it also is roughly 40 years old, and it's starting to show its age. So we have some significant capital facilities needs. I think we all know this, and each of you has talked about it as we've gone on through the presentation today, that we've got some big stuff. But I think a good place to start as a new entity, I think a good place would be for the planning committee to give direction to the board, the new board, that to start with the replacement for Station 63 and invest money in that investigation to get that ball rolling and start figuring out how we're going to do this.
And the investigation, I have no idea how much that would cost. Is that $500,000 to design something? I have no idea.
Yeah, I think that would be, I'd be okay if I think if the planning committee were to give me some direction to start finding out what that's going to be and bring some numbers to them, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, and then we could size that against what the reserves are offering and the other things like the HVAC and the painting that the routine
Right.
fixes and replacements that you need to also do. Okay. And is the new station piece, is that a question mark in terms of that study, or is baseline? We should study that in the next 6.
Well, I think it goes into you can take that in so many different directions, right? Is that new station, is that new station, is it moving Station 69, that we've identified might be in a bad area? Is that what we're calling a new station, or are we, because now we're talking about buying land. Where we buy that land, we're going to have to put in a pretty robust, there's not going to be any sewer there, so it's going to be a pretty robust septic system, and capturing runoff from the everyday activities of a commercial building. And it's going to be a big investment, and I think we might need to look at that as our new station that we talked about, using our existing facilities, upgrading our existing facilities, but that the new station might be the moving of Station 69.
So that's kind of a begin study, is a 2-pronged study, either new station
Correct.
or relocate 69. What makes the
Yep.
most sense? Okay. Sorry, I just jumped in with that. Those trying to get clear in my own mind.
No, that's
Anyone
fine.
else? Anyone have other questions or comments on what you're seeing here about station rehab and replacement and planning for same?
Yeah, I'll be the first one to jump in this time.
Okay.
Jason, what was the reason that we moved 69 from the city of Linden? Because it was at the city of Linden, now it's back out on the guide.
So the reason that, and at that time I was just a lieutenant. The reason the employees were given at that time, and I think it made sense, was that the district owed money on that facility, and the chief at the time wanted to eliminate as much debt as possible. It was at the beginning of when we would have felt the downturn. So it was a couple years after the 08 depression, and he desperately wanted to get out of debt. And we had a existing facility that was paid for, and I will go ahead and say it on public record. He found some really cheap labor in his firefighters, and said, you can either enjoy this station the way it is, or you can do a little remodel on it. And we made it work for us. But it paid off that station, and it eliminated that debt that the district had.
So there was no study done on why we moved from Linden back up to Station 69. It was just a financial deal, is my understanding.
No third-party verified study. Nothing that we could take to the voters and say this is why.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Good question. Anyone else got a question or comment on what you're seeing here for stations and planning? Now we're gonna, if we don't have any questions, is it something that you think you can support? Understanding we have to figure out how to fund it and when to fund it. Sounds like this, given that, with the baseline year stuff that we've been talking about so far, up to this point, you're probably up in the vicinity of $1.40 plus. This tranche may be a bond issue further down the line to pay for that. And Bill, if I am misspeaking, please correct.
So I'm gonna speak on behalf of Commissioner Andrews and myself that for some reason stations seem like a bond issue. It's such a large amount of capital, and I mean, we're going to have operation and maintenance expenses as it is. And I think if you look at Bill's model, it's going to take everything we have just to keep people and rigs on the road. And I don't know, my gut kind of says that the public would understand a bond issue maybe in a few years down the road that addresses our aging station needs. I think that's a whole lot easier sell. If you say, hey, I want a bunch more money so we can hire 20 more people to do whatever. But if you say our stations are falling down and we can't house our employees, I think the public is a little more in tune to wanting to get behind something like that.
What are you guys doing? Are you guys playing? Are you guys playing?
Hey, Dave.
Sorry, I didn't realize the dogs came right.
Well, you should at least show us the dog.
Yeah, I agree, Commissioner Nance. I mean, I agree, but I think we need to do as diligent planning on the ask for a bond issue as we are doing on this RFA ask that we're asking to. And I think that the sooner we get that ball rolling, the better product will be able to turn out to the public.
So Bruce and Harry, so thinking about what the chief just said, that yes, if we're going to build it, we probably need a bond issue, but we need to study it so that we can justify building it. And that would have to be something we'd need to see how we could squish that into the budget plan for the next 7 years. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to get that plan up and running so we know. Otherwise, we're just going to be another couple of years behind hiring a consultant or an architect, and yeah. And I think that's the least of our expense. And I would certainly think that we could work that into our existing budget process.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to clarify that distinction there. Anyone else, or before we try to do a recap of what, is anyone not comfortable with what they're seeing here, other than the fact that it's going to cost more than anybody wants to pay? But anybody have questions about what you're seeing here being a pretty important place to start moving forward on station issues?
Well, I just think the planning is crucial on this. If we're looking toward a new station, I'm looking at 2.3 million to upgrade and remodel Westlake Station. I mean, do we really long term, is that something we're going to need? I mean, those discussions we've had before, which stations are we going to keep and what are we going to do with the station on the guide? So the planning is crucial as we go down this road.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Anyone else on stations here? Okay. You guys ready to move to actually recap what we talked all about here and move forward? Okay, I'm going to say that's a yes.
Yes.
Hello. Okay, recap. So I'll take a crack at this and then you guys tell me if I didn't hear you right. This is what I heard. On the staffing, I'm just going to recap the last sections about what is baseline plus, how important is it to fund either of those. So on the staffing support, I heard consensus that the baseline, the bat chiefs make sense to as a first place to go, and that makes sense as a baseline. There is a discussion still to be had about whether the bat chiefs can also serve the PIO function in the interim, or whether the PIO should be added to the baseline. I think that's an issue for the planning committee to take up, is what I heard. And there was also some discussion about having that peaking unit done now rather than like try to find a way to do that because it seems like such a good idea rather than deferring that one. So let me just stop there. Do I have that about right? Or is that like, in terms of this initial look today, and everybody can go home and think about this for a week and we'll regroup and you may have a slightly different perspective, but at least at this point, does that seem like, it looks to me like everybody was in support of funding both baseline and baseline plus sooner rather than later. And if we only went with just the baseline, the question to be resolved is, do we add the PIO to the baseline? Do I sort of have that right? A thumbs up will suffice, but you're all black screened. So
I'll say that I think the PIO responsibilities were pointed out to be important. But I think if we add those battalion chief positions, and I've sort of looking across to a couple people here in our room saying that we think maybe the BCs at least initially could handle that responsibility, and that would save us that one position, at least for now. And the peak unit, I mean, we need help. I mean, the other option, in my opinion, is you have to add another, another company, another station or something. And if you look at the ESCI report, it's a stopgap, right? I mean, you start somewhere. Typically what happens with those peak units is they become full-time units because it shows how useful they are at taking that workload. And it's the long transport that's part of our equation that we have no control over. You drive from Blaine or Birch Bay down to St. Joe's and back, depending on time of year and traffic, and turn around and you're an hour and a half out of service easy. And that's a lot of covering from other jurisdictions. So yeah. I think we have to do it.
okay. Anybody else want to comment on that staffing stuff? At this point, we have some more work to do, but it sounds like we have a pretty strong consensus that we should try to eat both baseline and baseline plus sooner rather than later because of the risks in the concurrent call outs. I'm going to go to apparatus. I think I also heard a lot of support for both baseline and baseline plus, and the real question is how far can we get towards that with the reserve funding, and what does that do to the rate if we try to capture a little bit more? So that will be an exploration for the planning committee. How far can we get? And so I think one of your options may be, to the extent you can't get all of the equipment in your starting levy rate over the next 7 years, wherever you set that, it's potential you could combo stations and some other pieces of equipment into a bond issue. So we'll have to look at that, just see what kind of flex do we have in adding everything that has been identified into the initial starting levy rate versus segging out some of it and hoping we could get voter approval for a bond for stations and maybe a couple pieces of equipment. Do I have that right? Or anybody want to add any comments around apparatus? Okay. On stations, it sounds like we agree that studying this issue now is really important, and it should include not just studying what do we do with 63, but also the question of 69, is it in the right place, or do we need a new station somewhere else? And sort of a combined study effort there. And that the other consensus seems to be, this is too big to eat in one bite. We're probably going to need to go out and do a bond issue sometime over the next 7 years. This is a need that cannot be deferred beyond that, but it's probably one that we can't fund within the $1.50 or wherever we are comfortable ending up with inside the $1.50. Does that sound about like where folks are? I'm taking silence as consent, but don't worry, I will ask everybody to talk before everybody leaves. So just to confirm that.
Everybody's blacked out because they're asleep. No, we're
I thought, okay, I can be boring, but the chief was mesmerizing. Can you translate that for us, Bruce? If that was for us?
I think Scott was kind of asking about some of the reserve apparatus. Is that? Yeah. And like what's at Haney and what are we storing and what are we maintaining? And I think part of that discussion will occur with the chief's help, that we have stations with apparatus in it that we're paying insurance on and maintenance on, because if we have them, we've got to keep them running. And we have two great mechanics that are adamant about having our rigs race ready to go, but we are spending a ton of money on apparatus that are parked in stations and never roll except to go to the mechanic shop and get their oil changed or a light bulb replaced. And it's not a good use of our taxpayers' funds, in my opinion.
So that's another issue then we should look at as a way of mitigating some of the cost of this stuff. Is there a way of getting a handle on a safe, appropriate way to skinny down the reserve vehicles to save some money without sacrificing safety or reliability? Okay.
And that is what, it's unfortunate, but what, Commissioner Fisher's asking about what's at Haney. Well, there's a 30-year-old tender in Haney.
Wow.
Right. What is it? Weiser Lake. There's a 1977 ladder truck, which is on the auction site. So it's been surplused, but it's the last piece of apparatus there to go. I look over my shoulder here at the station I'm in, and yeah, there's a 1992 tender and a 1996 engine. Where I've chuckled with the mechanics that we should next year get collector vehicle license plates for most of our fleet, because we're actually eligible for a lot of them. So wow. But I remarked to Karen a couple of weeks ago, we're making that decision you never want to have to make with your own, your personal vehicles, right? Where we had a tender breakdown a couple of weeks ago that we need this to be in operation, and it's ready. It needs to be surplused. It's time. It's past time for it to go. But we spent $7,000 in parts to fix it. We couldn't get that for it at auction, and that didn't feel good. That didn't taste good when I did it, because when we do that, it doesn't taste good, because I would never choose to do that in my own personal life. And here we are kind of forced to spend our public's money doing that same thing. Now, of course, a tender to replace a tender is not like going out and buying a new car. It's something completely different. And you're talking, there's way more zeros at the end of a tender than there is at a replacement car. But still, we're having to make decisions like that, and we're asking our mechanics to keep the fleet running, and they do an exceptional job. But it's a good thing we got old mechanics, because they're fixing old stuff. So.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So that's sort of the recap. So I think unless folks want to talk more about the discussion that we've had this afternoon on the looking forward on the needs, that we'll just move right into next steps and wrap this up. The next steps will be for Bill and the chief and I to put our heads together and bring some information back to the planning committee that takes this conversation to the next step of what will it take, what are our different options for funding the baseline scenarios and baseline plus scenarios that you express support for today? How are the different ways we could do that? And we will continue to keep the full district board, District 21 board informed when we have recommendations, and you're also always welcome to sit in on the meetings. But that is really the push to get this RFA plan finished from this point going forward, is figuring out this finance plan. So today was super important for that. And I really appreciate everything that the chief and Bill did to help us get the numbers crunched and pulled together. So I think as far as my hopes for what we would be able to accomplish today, I think we've totally met that. And I'm really pleased at what appears to be, at least on first look here, pretty strong consensus about the direction we should go and strong support for what the chief has brought to you. So that's sort of what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking we'll be planning next. And if you can stand it, I'd love to have everybody just have a chance to say a closing comment here, and then we'll be done for the day. And Bruce, I'll let you go last on this one. How about that? So randomly, Commissioner Crawford, do you have closing comments for today?
Yeah, I do. I think this is a good thing, getting all the board members together and talking. I think we accomplished quite a bit today, and where we're at and where we can go. Chief, appreciate you and the rest of the staff out there. Ken, you and the guys are doing a great job. So hopefully we'll move forward and get some new fire trucks and some new buildings and make everybody happy. Thanks.
Thank you. Looks like we've lost Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, he had a work thing he had to run.
Oh dear. Okay.
So.
Commissioner Bosman.
No, I just want to thank you, Karen, for facilitating this. And I think your consensus at the end was very accurate. I think you captured it well. And I really appreciated the financial aspect, Bill. I think that I like having that working document that we can use. And of course, Jason, for putting together. It's been very well put together. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher, closing thoughts coming out of here. You are on mute, so you'll have to go find that mute button. There you go.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, we can hear you.
I'd like to just thank everybody for participating, and I think we got a lot out of this work session. I'd like to see another one sometime. Hopefully we'll get the computer issues taken care of, but the guys on the line are doing a wonderful job. So I'd just like to thank them.
Great. Okay, thank you. Maybe let's see here, anything go around the other, let's see here, Commissioner
Andrews.
What you got for us?
I have no further comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Ansel?
I'll try to be brief. Everybody wants to go home. This has probably been one of the most productive work sessions that we've had since I've been here. I appreciate, Karen, your leadership and knowledge and background in bringing this information to us. Bill, your expertise and number crunching is invaluable. Jason, your 24 hours a day planning and not sleeping and dedicating all your time to this project are amazing. And the rest of the board is taking their time to evaluate this. I guess one thing we didn't really emphasize on the, whatever levy rate we decide to set, it's not going to stay there. You know, everybody's afraid of that first number, which I get because that's the number the public's going to see. But if we, whatever we set, we need to make sure that everyone understands that the following years that levy rate goes down unless we re-raise it. That's why we're where we're at today. And if you look closely at Bill's model, you know, it goes down by 2 to 3 cents a year. So if you're afraid of the $1.50 in the 3 years, it's going to be $1.40 something. So I don't know how we message that, but I know we're going to be really careful for what the initial rate's going to be to the public here. I think the planning committee has a lot of work to do, and I'm wondering, we haven't set that next meeting date. Do you have an idea of when that might be?
I don't think we have a date for our next meeting, but we will enlist Jenny's help in confirming some times that work for all of you. And we may want to, yeah, and we'll try to get that calendared as soon as possible. It's, I'm not sure if that was your question, but I think it was. Was that it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got some momentum right now. We've got numbers in front of us. We've got a great packet here, and I think we need to get to work. And so I'm hoping that we can do that in the next 2 weeks.
Yep. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Just question of whether we could get it pulled together. I think probably 2 weeks will give us the time to work with between Bill and the chief and I to really put together the scenarios that we think will be responsive for to the questions that you've asked today and the recommendations that you're leaning towards. So, but yes, we should get on that as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Anyone else for the good of the order, Chief?
I just want to say thank you to Karen and also to to Jenny Sand, who put this packet together, who, you know, she formats everything, and she had snacks at your table. Sorry, Karen, you and I didn't get any, but I know Ken didn't either, if that makes you feel better. So, but anyway, yeah, she went down and got everything all set up, and I just want to thank her. She's works harder than she works circles around me all day long, and so thank you very much to her, and also to Karen for your awesome facilitating and drawing out the questions. And yeah, I just appreciate the way you've herded us through this process.
Awesome. It's fun herding, and Bruce will forgive me someday for picking on him.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, okay. TBD. Okay, gang.
Anyone else, Kenneth or
yeah,
Chris or Sean?
I just wanted to obviously thank Mr. Cushman for his work in making sure Chief knew what the numbers were. That's something that I know he was very grateful for. Karen, obviously you as well for putting this kind of presentation together and steering everyone in the right direction. And lastly, obviously all of you commissioners and the ones that aren't here as well. Thank you for your support on behalf of the union. We're just kind of moving forward the direction that you guys are wanting, responding to the calls, but we do need that support of staffing and stations and equipment from you guys to do our jobs fully. So I know a lot of the members will appreciate that as well, hearing the direction you guys are wanting to go. And I appreciate that. It makes my job easier in making sure that we have the equipment that we need to do our job. So thank you for that.
Great.
I just wanted to say real quick, it was a great meeting, good presentations, and I was especially looking forward to the financial presentation today, so that was very informative.
Good. And Assistant Chief Ward, do you have anything for us? I don't know if you're able even to be at your desk at the moment.
He probably can't talk. I was having problems with my mic before, and we
right.
flopped desks. So
Okay.
Been muted.
Yeah. Commissioner Ansel, Jenny did send me a note, said that please make sure to adjourn the meeting officially.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I was waiting. I didn't want to cut anybody off.
Nope, I get it.
But if Karen says we're done, then I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
You are done.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. I guess I'll ask all in favor, thumbs up, a yell, confirmation. I've got 4 people in this room, so that's at least a quorum. We're going to adjourn the meeting at 4:39 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ansel.
Karen, I
Yes.
will, I'll call you on the phone.
Okay.
If you got a few minutes. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Thank you, Bill.